Good to see you. I like that pullover.
Oh, thank you, man. I'm just trying to be like you.
Well, thank you. And that's what this is about today. Our show is about surrounding yourself with people that help you step up your game.
Yeah.
As our friend Matt says, is that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I got to say, my 5, strong. Strong, Rick.
You got a good bench.
My 5 is so strong. Yeah, how about yours?
Yeah, I think so. When I made the move up to Sedona after I left Scottsdale, there was a bit of a lull. But keep this in mind too, that some of those 5 people that you want to spend time with could be authors, could be philosophers, could be psychologists, could be people who are...
Speak! Speak!
Could be Wayne Dyer.
You cook, Rick, you cook! I like it, baby!
It doesn't have to be living people as well. But I think the point is well taken. It's got to be people that speak to you, and there's got to be something that you get from it that you're trying to improve in yourself, that you want for yourself.
Absolutely, and that's the title of today's show. It's about that circle. So it's the circle of the people that you spend time with, and we are just going to share a little bit about our experiences with some great choices we made, some that were not so great, and what we learned from those experiences. So let's kick it off with you answering the first question.
No, let's flip it around. I really want to hear about him ever having trouble finding good friends. Let's hear about that.
I think part of finding a good friend is being one. And I look back when I've had some great friendships during childhood, and I had some friendships that kind of faded away. But when I look at them, in earnest, the friendships that kind of faded away, those are friendships in which I wasn't the best friend myself. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, not that I did something wrong or slighted someone, but more I didn't nurture the friendship. Like I didn't contribute to it in a way that shows that I value it, right, and I want to protect it and I want to keep it going. So I didn't nurture the friendships, but I learned how to do that. And ToBeRe has really, really helped me do that. Mm. So I became a good friend, and that's what I set out to. I want to be a friend to everybody. And I think one of the really important traits or characteristics of a good friend is unconditional love and support.
Yeah.
And
hard to find too.
I wasn't, because I came with a lot of judgment. I came with a lot of my own stuff and stories in my past. I brought all of that with me into every friendship and relationship that if someone said something a certain way, my mind consciously, subconsciously would start rewinding to something in my past, and it would be like, I've heard that before, I'm uncomfortable with that, so this person can't be a good friend. Mm. People talk about, they say that I'm pretty strong and I am unreasonable and letting people get away with excuses. So there's often people like, you remind me, that's true, you remind me of my ex-husband, you remind me of my mom, you remind me of my ex-wife, and all those things. And like, no, if I do, I hope it's positive, but they weren't saying it in a positive way. And so what I had to learn to do was to be a really good friend, not bring my past to to any new relationship, be mindful of that. And that has really helped me show up big for people. And I've done that for a long time now. But the most challenging part was accepting people just as they are, not trying to change them. Really, I'm talking about really accepting them who they are. And what I mean by that, accepting them for who they are and for who they're not. And then lastly, before I throw it back at you, is that the unconditional love piece, man. That one is not easy, man.
No,
that was really, really hard. But when I really got that I want people to treat me, a certain way, it required me to treat them that way. And then there's still some people that won't, and that's okay, that's their journey. But I really said, I'm going to be unconditional love to every single person. And I'm grateful for the people that when I wasn't my best, they did the same for me. What about you?
Well, I think I have a little different take on it. I'm not the leader of any group like you are with ToBeRe. So you're in a little different situation. You see many, many people, more than I do. And I'm also probably a little bit different than you personality-wise. I'm probably not as outgoing as you are or like to be around people that much. I do like people, but I'm sort of in the middle between extroversion and introversion. The only reason I bring that up is because some of our viewers might be introverts, and it's really difficult to be with a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Introverts tend to get a lot of energy from being by themselves, reading or doing things that make sense to them without other people around. Extroverts, just the opposite. They draw energy from being with people. No, neither one is bad or good. They're just the way we are. So my point is that I think even if someone is less extroverted than Keith, you don't have to have this notion that you have to give the world unconditional love to be a good friend and to have a good group. I think the thing is you have to tailor your group of people to those traits that you're trying to embed in yourself.
Right.
So for example, for me, I'll give you an example of something I didn't like about myself, which was judging. Excessive judging. I had this tendency to want to put people in a box. You know, he's going to act this way because he looks that way, or he drives this kind of car, so I expect him to be that way. Now, we all do that. I mean, stereotypes come from some basis in rationality and some basis in fact. The problem is that you take it a step too far and already prejudge that person. So I wanted to work on not judging. And so what I did is I tried to find people in my life who were not judgers, and I'd hang with them. And I just kind of see how they would react to things that were slights. For example, here's a good one. Went out to dinner with a person that I admired very much as a non-judger, and we had a waitress who was totally goth, totally pierced, totally tattooed. And some people might look at that and have some sly comment about it. Make matters worse, during the time we're having dinner, this poor waitress spills red wine right on my dinner partner's white blouse. And instead of her reacting and going nuts and calling her names or just acting out, she said, "Oh man, this is really rough. We got to fix this. Get me some club soda," and took care of it. Gave her an extra tip and left her a little note saying, "You had a bad day, so did I, ! Happy face." Seriously? I want that. I want to be that person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love what you said, who you surround yourself with, that there is some trait about yourself that you want to improve so that you become your best. Not for anyone else, but so you become your best. You want to be more patient. Hang around people that have a lot of patience.
Right.
And at the same time, being mindful about when you're not patient, becoming aware of it so that you can start to channel the person who inspired you so that you can practice patience. And I had some great friends. You've always been patient with me. I don't know how you are with other people, but with me,
I'm a raging jerk.
Well, with me, with Tim and me, you've been great. So you
total fraud.
Total fraud, and we'll take it. Those things. But I went back and I started to look at this unconditional love thing is really, really important to me. Because I made my share of mistakes. I've failed, situations, not been success in every opportunity that's come my way. I've let people down. And so it's really important that I want the people around me to give me the space and the grace to come back from that, so that that's not the end of the world. So I started looking for people that are unconditional in their love for me. And I make sure that I put that out. And my first example of it was my mom.
Wow.
Man, my mom was I don't know what to say about my mom, man. She's just the most amazing person that I've ever known. And it's how she raised us in the environment. As I talked to in a previous podcast, I grew up in a abusive household. My stepfather, had his own journey. He struggled with alcohol addiction. And with that came a lot of abuse, physical and verbal. And I have no animosity, ill will. I did for a long time, but I got none of that anymore. No anger, no resentment. And you know why? Because the example my mom laid down.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I mean, my mom was on the receiving end of quite a bit of abuse. And physical, verbal, emotional. Rick, not one time did she say an ill word toward my stepfather. Not one time did she try to she pit us against him and see him as an enemy. Man, she was just always loving, always kind. And she never said it, like, hey, I'm going to be loving towards your stepfather and this is what you guys got to do. Led by example.
Yeah.
She led by example. And so when you see that, I kind of lost my way, like the prodigal son. I was connected to my mom, but that wasn't a lesson I got until I was I judged plenty of people in my day, no question. And I might do it again tomorrow, but I'll try not to. But along the way, I lost that lesson from her. And then when I was on the receiving end in which something happened that I felt shame over, I blamed myself, guilt, I was embarrassed by, I was seeking, a safe place to land, some grace. And the first person I called?
Your mom.
My mom.
Yeah.
The second place I called? You and Tim. You guys were 2 and 3 because I knew I could count on you guys, man. So my mom is part of my 5, You and Tim are part of my 5. And it's because, so I get that, and you guys push me to grow too. So it's just not the unconditional love, but there are other things that are important to me, to your point, about the things that you want to work on, improve on, you want to grow and nurture. Find people who do that at an extraordinary level, and that's what I did.
Yeah, good for you. I think that's really healthy too. Another thing, the flip side of that is, what do you do when you find yourself in a situation where maybe you've outgrown the friendship, or maybe you realize that you're in a toxic situation, or maybe the person that you're hanging with or a series of people that you're hanging with are doing nothing but bringing you down or being critical of you. I mean, we all have to have some degree of tolerance for other people's criticism. I mean, that's not a problem at all. But the real issue is, are they looking at you in a way that is bringing you nothing but disappointment in yourself? And if that's the case, you may be in a position where you want to be leaving, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think I'll respond to that. And so, I've had some situations like that, and I've been on both sides of it, to where I wasn't a great friend, and I brought a ton of judgment, complaining about everybody. I mean, I saw something wrong with it. Election didn't go my way, I had something to say, and wouldn't stop. Just hammering points.
They were good points, though. They were mostly good points.
I was trying to be right all day. And there were people that were patient with me. They put up with it. I guess the other qualities I brought to the table were redeeming, but not redeeming enough, and certainly not my best. And then I've been on the other side of it, to where I've been around people that their energy wasn't a contribution to my life or where I was going. And so in those situations, what I did before was I would either act out and be passive aggressive, or I would slowly kind of pull my friendship away, not call, not be around. Mm-hmm. I would play that kind of small role. As I got older, what I started to do is I would create an agreement with them. And I would say to them, hey, listen, this is what I would like for our friendship. And I want you to share what I'm doing that may not be contributing to our friendship being this.
That's great.
And I want our friendship to be one in which every time we're together, we feel profound connection. There's love present. There's no judging. We're not talking about other people or anything like that. We uplift each other. It's a space that we can be vulnerable. We can share our failures, how we failed, our disappointments, if the negative chatter that's going on, so you can kind of smack me around and get me right back on the path. And you have that kind of conversation. And I've had that with some people. It's like, this is what I want for our friendship. And I want us to help each other grow. I want us to help each other live our best life. And some people was like, yeah, let's do that, and we would share and do the constructive criticism or the feedback, in which we would share with each other without taking it personal, of what the other person was doing or how we were perceiving what they're doing, to not be contributing to that desired friendship, that desired relationship. And we were able to create a magical relationship like that. Tim, for a lot of years, I didn't know at the time, but he was going through a relationship transition in his divorce, and he was trying to save his marriage. And so he pulled back in our friendship, and I kept showing up for him. And then finally, I was like, man, this guy's not returning my phone call. I'm done with this. And then he went through that situation with it, and he reached out to me, and we reconnected. And his pledge to me over 5 years ago was, I'm going to show up for you as the friend you are to me.
Nice.
And so from this point on, and this dude is lights out as a friend. I mean, like, this is my man. He is lights out.
Tim's amazing. He'll be on the show too, by the way.
Absolutely, just amazing. So that's the kind of conversation we had, and we made this agreement that this is how we're going to show up for each other. You and I made a similar agreement,
Yeah.
but we didn't have any kind of trouble before that we needed to have this kind of conversation.
It's coming.
Oh,
It's coming. Yeah, as soon as the lights go out. Right? It's terrible food.
Is it something I'm going to have to sit down for?
Okay. We'll deal with it in another show.
That's right. Okay, but yeah, so I think when you have a friendship that you may need to walk away from, I think the first thing you do is not just walk away from it, but if the other person is receptive, try to create an agreement in which you outline what you both want in the friendship moving forward, what you both are committed to contributing to it moving forward, and then you go from there. And you're not going to be perfect all the time, but you give each other the permission to call each other out when you're not living up to what you say you want.
Well, two things I'd say about that. I'm probably not as forgiving as you are. For my money, I think the key to any great relationship, whether it's romantic and sexual, or whether it's just great buddies and personal friends or soulmates, whatever it is communication. What you're talking about with making an agreement covers that very point. The idea is that I have needs, you have needs, let's see if we can maximize both of our needs. And the idea of having a friend or having a lover is that it maximizes life, it makes it more rich. You know, it's twice the fun to be with somebody else. You see it through their eyes. And when bad things happen, it's half the misery because you can share it with another person.
Absolutely.
So once you decide that that's worth pursuing, then I think the communication is key and it becomes important. The second thing I'd say is that I think relationships all have a shelf life. Some last forever, some last for a one-night stand. Been a little low on those years, but I think you can have a relationship that, I mean, is instantly glorious and lasts forever, and you can have people that are together for 10 years and they just run out of gas. So I'm not sure that we want to worry about labeling any of those things as failures. Like people who divorce, I don't think that's a failure necessarily.
No.
It might be, but I think often it's just two people going in different directions. But the communication, back to the point, you select people that you want to, in my judgment, try to emulate to make you a better person yourself, and who are supportive and who are really, really interested in you. And as you say, you return the friendship.
Absolutely.
And once you're in that situation, it's unconditional love. When that starts to erode, then we do what you said. Either we communicate and maybe make an agreement with them or discuss the possibility of an agreement.
Right.
And then I think if all of that doesn't work, then you have to consider whether the shelf life has been hit and it's time to move on. We got 6 billion people on the planet, man. You don't have to stick with the ones you're at.
Absolutely. As we close, I think this is a very important topic, of choosing great friends, celebrating the ones you have if they are great friends, as well as, how do you let friendships or relationships go that may not be ideal. And, if it comes to anything that's really, really serious relationship, definitely talk to a professional about it so that you don't experience any kind of trauma on either end yourself or if there's kids involved or things like that. But just be really open and honest and be vulnerable as you go through this with a circle of friends. And what we invite you to do is send us questions. We've had people that we talk to, face to face or over the phone or through email that have questions for us that we really want to respond back to and answer on our website, on our YouTube channel, on our iTunes podcast channel. So if you have a question about how to select friends or how to create an agreement with friends or let a friendship go, definitely reach out to us. We'd love your questions and your comments to help the show better and to support you, because we really appreciate you supporting us. What's the takeaway you got for the people?
Well, before that, I just want to make one comment on the vulnerability. We get a kick out of it. Sometimes we hear people say, man, you guys talk about all your failures, or some of your failures are kind of embarrassing. And, it's true, because neither of us have had any success. Before showing up today, for example, I had lived for 6 weeks in the washroom of the Greyhound bus terminal in downtown Phoenix. And that's sort of where I'm comfortable now. Okay, takeaways from the show. Everybody needs friends, and you really, really have to have a support group as part of your emotional, psychological well-being. You
Yes.
must have that. You must seek it. It may not be your family, surprisingly enough, or it may, if you're very lucky, be your family. If it isn't your family, you have an obligation to go out for your own mental health and find people who resonate with you. And for those people who are interested in bettering their lives and trying to be a better person, I think the important thing is to look for a trait that you're weak in, emulate somebody or be around somebody that has the trait that you want to develop. And then I also think Keith's point about unconditional love, once you're in a relationship, is hugely important, that you've got to be honest about your intentions, you have to be honest about your love for them so they understand it. And I think you also have to have this great communication, which might include an agreement if things get a little rough. Lastly, I think it's important to realize that there's no mistakes if you're feeling intuitively that it's not working, that there's something that's happening, that the person really doesn't have your best interest at heart, nor you maybe not have theirs at heart. It's time to move on. Maybe it's soured, maybe there's something that's ended. But take no shame, take no responsibility for beating another person up. Take responsibility for going out and getting what you need. Lastly, as Keith said, when we're dealing in the area of marital relations and kids are involved, counseling, professional help, always indicated, always, always. Best to give it a go. You don't lose anything. You know, you're no worse off by going through counseling than if you didn't go. Why not give it a shot?
Right. You know, I want to say one last thing because you brought up a really, really good point. And that point is that in your friendships, that if there is one that you feel like you're responsible for, or there's been a rift and you said some things that you're not happy about and there's been a lot of time that's passed, you know, I really suggest owning that, you know, and what you did or what you said. Don't beat yourself up over it, but, you know, try to find a way to apologize for it. The other person may be open to it, they may not be open to it. But you really want to complete some unfinished business, because if you don't, you bring that into your other friendships. You bring those biases and all those things with you.
It's true.
And you just want to be at your best. And so you want to expand your capacity to be loving, to be open, to be a great friend. And if you have these things from the past that are toxic, that kind of encroaches upon that space for you to be your best.
Good word. That's a great word, encroaches. And I think that the idea that you learn a lesson from something that you screwed up on is completed once you do something like a letter of apology, even if it's something that happened 20 years ago or 15 years ago, like we did in Landmark.
Exactly.
It's a very freeing feeling. You know, you wronged somebody 10 years ago, write them a letter, admit it. Put the whole damn thing down on paper, and I think there's a release that comes from that at least makes you more mindful of not doing the same dang thing next time.
Absolutely. Perfect. Rick, thank you for a great show.
I love you, buddy.
I love you too, man. Thank you.